You ever see a house so big it blocks out the sun and think, yeah, somebody's overcompensating? That's pretty much how all this started. One night, the fanciest villa in town throws a party, chandeliers blazing, cars lined up like a Hollywood premiere, and just when everyone's raising a glass to progress, the real owner walks in, flashes a single piece of paper, and takes it all. I know, it sounds like a bad movie, but let me back up a sec. Tuesday morning, I'm coming back from Home Depot, half a breakfast taco still warm in the truck, when I see three guys in neon vests, pounding stakes right into the patch of Texas dirt my granddad used to plow. We're not talking a rolling green estate, just an acre, some wire fence held up by hope and rust, and a scrappy line of mesquite trees. But it's ours, always has been. There's a white contractor truck by the property line, blueprints unrolled on the tailgate, and a woman in a beige blazer barking orders like she owns the county. She turns when I get out, sunglasses so dark you'd think she was hiding from the law, and says, flat as you please, "This is my land." Now, I didn't come looking for a fight, but my voice came out cold. Banning property's been in this family for 3 generations. One of the workers looked like he'd swallowed his gum. She just smiled, all fake courtesy, waving her hand. In used land, we're improving the neighborhood. And I'll tell you, the way she looked at me, like I was some stray dog, well, my blood just about boiled. But I kept my cool. She introduced herself, Judith Merrow, HOA president, and started in about progress, property values, the future of Willow Bend. I listened, didn't yell, didn't cuss, just let her think she was in control. Sometimes you gotta let folks show you who they really are, you know what I mean? I went home and dug out the deed, yellowed with age, my granddad's signature still bold at the bottom. That acre, to me, is more than dirt, it's memory. I remember fixing fence posts with Granddad, him saying, "Son, dirt's the one thing they ain't making more of. You guard it." He wasn't just whistling. Dixie. He knew this land was our stake in the world. Plano's changed plenty since then. Used to be fields. Now it's stone fences, perfect lawns, and HOA bulletins about mailbox colors. My little patch wasn't part of their grid, and that's exactly why Judith wanted it so bad. It stood out, wouldn't fit in her picture-perfect kingdom. She ran the HOA like it was a Fortune 500 letters. About grass length, threats over Christmas lights, the whole 9 yards. If you didn't fall in line, you were a problem. So when she saw my acre, wild and stubborn, she saw a flaw to fix, not a legacy to respect. She started talking at meetings about a crown jewel for Willow Bend, hired architects, courted investors at wine and cheese parties, waving away questions about ownership. "That's just paper," she'd laugh. "Progress is reality." Some folks laughed along. Others just looked uncomfortable and sipped their drinks. I'll tell you, it was almost funny watching her pour money into blueprints, Italian marble, some pool big enough for a summer camp. She acted like no one could stop her, and honestly, most folks believed it. Not me. I let her build, kept my head down, collected receipts and photos, saved every letter she sent or claim she made. Didn't shout, didn't threaten, just waited, like Granddad taught me. The land teaches patience. That's the trick most folks never learn. Twist is, she got bolder. Bulldozers showed up, construction crews in and out all day, neighbors gossiping on sidewalks. $6 million. The parties will be legendary. Some even called me a fool for letting it happen. But I wasn't idle. My old buddy Paul, a lawyer in Dallas, looked over the paperwork and just shook his head. "You wait, Cornell, and when she's done, well, you'll own the grandest house on your block." As the months rolled by, the place grew. Marble columns, imported tile, chandeliers that probably cost more than my truck. Judith hosted site tours for donors, smiled for the local magazine, told anyone who'd listen that this house would raise property values for miles. Meanwhile, I kept my records, photos, contracts, even the license plates of delivery trucks, anything to show exactly who built what, where, and when. Neighbors started saying I was whipped, that I'd rolled over for her. They didn't see the stack of evidence piling up at home. Came a night when Judith threw a big, almost finished bash. Floodlights, red carpet, champagne on trays, like something out of a soap opera. Everyone who was anyone showed up, toasting her vision. I watched from the end of the block, waited until the crowd was good and thick, then walked up. Boots dusty, jeans, nothing fancy. You should have seen the looks. Judith tried to play hostess. Mr. Banning, welcome. Come see progress up close. I didn't say much. Just pulled out the deed, unfolded it slow so every guest could see the stamps and signatures. This acre? Bought by Elijah Banning in 1947, passed down to his son, then me. Every stone, every chandelier, every inch, you built it on my soil. At first, silence. Then a whisper, he owns it? Judith tried to laugh it off, called it a stunt, but the crowd was already pulling out phones, taking pictures, videos. A reporter in the back started jotting notes. I told her plain, you can argue with your guests, but you can't argue with the county clerk. The deed's on record, and every penny you spent is stuck to my name. The whole party went cold. Judith's hand shook. Her glass cracked in her grip. I left her standing there, pride in shards at her feet. Next day, the story went viral. Local news, then Dallas, then everywhere. Headlines about the HOA blunder of the year. Videos of Judith's face when I held up the deed. Investors pulled out, contractors stopped coming, magazine features vanished overnight. The HOA board called a meeting, neighbors lined up to tell Judith she'd abused her power, embarrassed the community. When the vote came, she was out, president one day, nobody the next. I didn't celebrate. I just walked the villa one evening. Moonlight on marble, boots crunching the same dirt I'd crossed as a boy. Felt sad. Honestly, so much wasted, all for one of a little respect. Legacy ain't about money, or fancy tiles, or whose name gets printed in the newsletter. It's about honoring the people who came before, the sweat and stories soaked into every acre. Judith vanished, curtains drawn, phone off. Rumor was, she faced lawsuits, angry investors, maybe even the city. I didn't wish her harm, but I hoped she learned something. Folks still ask what I'll do with the house. Move in, sell it, tear it down. Maybe I'll decide someday. Maybe not. But here's the truth. In the end, it wasn't about revenge, or money, or even beating Judith. It was about respect. My granddad fought too hard for this ground to let it slip away to arrogance. And if you take anything from this story, let it be this. Patience beats pride every time. Legacy matters more than any mansion. Land, if you respect it, will outlast any paper queen. If you've ever had to fight for what's right, or had someone try to write you out of your own story, go ahead and let me know in the comments. Whose side are you on? The one who builds, or the one who remembers? Share your take below, and don't forget, subscribe for more. This story's just one of many. So, you'd think after a showdown like that, I'd be riding high, right? Truth is, I barely slept that first week. Phone buzzing non-stop, neighbors whispering in driveways, local reporters camping out on the sidewalk hoping for a comment. I kept my head down, stuck to my routines, even when folks I'd never met wanted a handshake or a quote. It was almost surreal. One minute you're defending your grandfather's dirt, the next, you're headline news in a story. Folks argue about over morning coffee. Judith, though, she vanished. The woman who used to wave from her porch and police every garden gnome suddenly became a ghost behind drawn curtains. You could feel the shift, where people used to glance over their shoulders, scared of crossing her. Now they'd trade knowing looks and mutter, she had it coming. The villa itself, all $6 million worth of stone, tile, and shattered dreams, stood quiet. No more construction crews, no more magazine tours, just the hum of crickets and the occasional realtor creeping by, hoping for a bargain. And man, the rumors flew. Some said I planned to move in and throw block parties just to rub it in. Others thought I'd bulldoze the whole palace out of spite. Truth? I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. Every time I walked that empty house, boots echoing on imported marble, I felt the weight of history, my family's, Judith's, even the neighborhood's. That place wasn't just a monument to stubbornness. It was proof that progress without respect is just destruction dressed up in pearls. There was a weird kind of justice in the air. Investors started circling, lawyers traded paperwork, city officials tiptoed around, hoping the headlines would fade. Even the folks who once cheered Judith on kept their distance. People are funny. That way, one night, I was sitting in a diner off the highway, coffee gone cold, when a young reporter slid into the booth across from me. She was maybe 25, fresh out of college. Eyes bright and full of questions. Mr. Banning, What does it feel like to win everything without firing a shot? I laughed. Couldn't help it. Doesn't feel like winning, I told her. Feels like holding your breath for months and finally getting to exhale. She wanted to know what I'd do with the house. Would I sell it? Move in? Turn it into a museum? All I could say was, this land's never been about money for me. It's about respect. It's about not letting someone erase your name just because they think they can. She scribbled in her notebook, eyes wide. And I could tell she was expecting some big, TV-worthy quote. I just finished my coffee, dropped a couple bucks on the table, and left her with that. Meanwhile, back in Willow Bend, folks kept talking. At backyard barbecues and driveway meetups, the story grew. Some made me out to be a hero. Some called me cruel for letting Judith fall so hard. You know how people are. Always looking for a villain and a champion, when really, most of us are just hanging on and trying to do right by our own. My cousin Jerome stopped by with beers one Saturday, plopped down on the tailgate of my truck, and just shook his head. You realize this'll be legend around here, right? They'll be telling your story long after we're gone. I grinned and said, let's hope they remember. The lesson, not just the drama. The HOA, they tried to clean up the mess quick. Emergency meeting, angry homeowners. Some folks finally brave enough to say out loud what they'd always whispered. Behind closed doors, you can't run a neighborhood like it's your personal fiefdom. They stripped Judith of her title, kicked her off the board, and for the first time in years, the fear was gone. In its place, a weird, uneasy sense of freedom. Folks started planting what they wanted in their front yards, painting shutters their favorite colors, laughing a little louder at block parties. It was like someone let the air back into the place. Still, not everything settled down. There were lawsuits. Oh, you better believe it. Judith's investors, contractors, even the city wanted answers. She tried to fight back, at least for a while. But the money dried up, the headlines kept coming, and one by one, her allies fell away. The villa stood empty, a monument to ambition gone sideways. And every time I passed by, it reminded me that power without humility is just a ticking time bomb. For me, the house was never the prize. I kept visiting, sure, walking those quiet halls, running my hand over the stone columns, listening to the echoes. Neighbors stopped me, offered advice. Turn it into a wedding venue. Sell it to a tech billionaire. Open a barbecue joint. For all I care. But I just smiled. To them, it was a jackpot. To me, it was responsibility, the kind that settles on your shoulders and doesn't let go. And you know, there was one afternoon, not long after the dust settled, when I walked the property at sunset. Sky was streaked gold and red, the reflecting pool like glass. And for a second, I heard my grandfather's voice, land don't care. About marble and chandeliers, boy, it remembers who's true to it. I found myself talking to him, soft, like I used to as a kid. We kept it, Granddad. She tried, but we kept it. The wind and the mesquite trees felt like his hand on my shoulder. As the months went by, the story faded from the news, but not from memory. People still pointed at the villa, told newcomers the tale, about pride, patience, and not betting against a stubborn Texan with the law on his side. Judith moved away, I heard, quietly, without a word, leaving behind a legacy of lessons for anyone willing to pay attention. The world moved on, as it always does. Me? I'm still here. Still mowing that wild acre, still keeping the deed safe. Sometimes I let the grass grow a little taller than the HOA would. Like, old habits die hard. And when people ask what's next, I just grin and say, this land was always about family, not fortune. Maybe someday I'll sell, maybe I'll pass it down. But one thing's certain, respect outlasts any palace, and patience wins wars that pride can't even see coming. So if you're ever faced with someone trying to write you out of your own story, remember this, sometimes the best revenge is just standing your ground, letting the dust settle, and owning the ending. And hey, if you've got your own story of stubbornness and standing up for what's right, drop it in the comments. I read every one. Don't forget to subscribe, share this with someone who could use a reminder, and stick around, because around here, every acre's got a story, and every story needs someone to tell it.